Hey folks, thanks for watching my video. If you are new to my channel, subscribe now and ring that bell for future notifications. Thanks. Alright guys, thank you so very much for tuning in today. We are recapping Spider-Man Life Story number 2. So this is today's recap. And to get you guys all caught up, again in 1962 in Amazing Fantasy, number 15, 15-year-old Peter Parker was bitten by a radioactive spider and became the Amazing Spider-Man. 57 years have passed in the real world since that event. So what would have happened if the same amount of time passed for Peter as well? A special high-ended limited series that's a part of the celebration of Marvel's 80th anniversary. Spider-Man Life Story combines the talents of Chip Zdarsky, Spectacular Spider-Man, Marvel 2-in-1, and Mark Bagley, Amazing Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man, to tell you the entire history of Spider-Man from beginning to end, set against the key events of the decades through which he lived. In this first oversized issue, when Flash Thompson is drafted to serve during the Vietnam War, Spidey must weigh the question of where his responsibilities truly lies. Now in the second chapter of this series, we are in the year of 1977, and it starts off very emotional because Peter has lost his friend to the war, Flash Thompson. It also appears Captain America has gone rogue in the war. He and Iron Man once again seem to be on two different sides in terms of perspective. This will make for some interesting conclusions down the road. Peter Parker is now working with Reed Richards, one of the genius minds in the Marvel Universe. Reed Richards has created so many new and innovative designs that could potentially change the world for the better. Instead of using those designs to help the war, Reed has his reasons for holding his creations back. But it infuriates Peter Parker because he sees the potential and the moral obligation they have for helping the world. Dr. Otto Octavius also now works with Reed Richards. He's a new man and has changed his life around. Peter even mentions this as he's thinking to himself how crazy it is that Doc Ock not too long ago was trying to kill him as Spider-Man. Now they are colleagues in the workplace. Going on, Harry Osborn visits his father in prison. Essentially what happens here, Norman has one major request for his son to fulfill. At first, Harry is hesitant to even collaborate with his father until Norman fills him in on a little secret about Peter Parker. Gwen and Peter are happily married, and Gwen has a very stable career working with Professor Miles Warren. If that name rings a bell, it might be tingling your Spidey senses back to the Clone Saga and links to the Jackal. Just a fun little webhead fact for you. Going on, we see that Spidey has made some updates to his suit. Looks fairly familiar to the Insomniac design with, the wide spider on the torso and the padding on the shoulders and the legs and the arms. I'm also curious if that new design is because he's older. Seems more padded for protection. Anyway, that's just a little design in the costume that I noticed as I was reading. Peter was invited to a disco party to meet up with his old friends, Harry Osborn and his fiancée, Mary Jane. Harry is under the influence at this time, and Mary Jane lashes out on Peter for having a self-righteous attitude. She also tells Peter that she knows his secret. She knows that he's Spider-Man, and she's known this since they were 15 years old, as he would sneak out of Aunt May's house almost every night. What hurts here, MJ tells Peter that he just wallows in his regrets instead of stopping Flash Thompson before he went to the war. Peter has all this power and could have saved him. Eventually, Peter storms out of the disco party, but deep down, he feels regret about not participating in the war, only hoping he made the right decision being the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. In the next scene, we get a moment with Peter and Reed Richards, and Peter flashes out on him. All the technology and resources Reed Richards has, and that he's created over the time, he simply hoards in his own collection rather than using those tools to help the soldiers overseas. This infuriates Peter, but Reed insists that if his technology got in government hands, it would create a global uprising and inequality between mutants and humans. Peter strikes a nerve in Reed as he says Reed acts like he's not human, and that's part of why his wife left him. Reed Richards slaps Peter in the face And it was in this scene Peter decided to quit his job working with Reed. Going on, we get a scene with Harry and MJ as they are lounging in their apartment, and Harry asks how the disco party went, seeing as he was heavily intoxicated. MJ pretty much says it was a bittersweet, kind of ordeal, seeing as Peter Parker showed up with his holier-than-thou attitude. Harry seems intrigued yet infuriated with this news, and then gives his father Norman a call saying he's ready. And as I'm sure you guessed, that means trouble. Spider-Man then swings over to Professor Warren's lab to see if his job offer still stands, as Peter just quit his own job. Once he arrives, we are surprised with a new character twist. A black and gold goblin? Of course, none other than Harry Osborn, who was doing a job for his father. The Black Goblin breaks into the lab and goes after Professor Warren. Spider-Man soon shows up and confronts the Black Goblin, trying to, fight him off. The Black Goblin, however, is looking for something, a signal, and once he finds it, he throws a pumpkin bomb at a specific area in the lab, revealing a major twist in the story. The Black Goblin, Spider-Man, and Gwen are all shocked at what's revealed in the lab. Clones. One of Peter Parker, Norman Osborn, and Gwen Stacy? Professor Warren says he could explain, but Harry cuts him off and says it was supposed to be just his father's clone, not two others. Professor Warren says Norman wanted a clone of Peter as well. Not really sure why Norman wanted this, but we also learn Professor Warren created Gwen's clone mainly for himself, hoping she would fall in love with him. Harry then attacks Spider-Man and removes his mask in frustration. Norman Osborn always wanted Peter to be his heir to the company. In Harry's eyes, it's always been about Peter, and he's felt overlooked by his own father. So his Black Goblin persona is mainly an act of frustration built up over the years. We get a really cool fight segment between, these two, Goblin and Spidey. And again, I just thought it was very cool how they reconstructed Harry's involvement with the Green Goblin and why, he was seeking revenge against Spider-Man. Going on, Peter explains why he turned Norman Osborn in and actually got Harry to understand and calm down a little bit. His father is insane. Harry eventually apologizes and unexpectedly throws pumpkin bombs into the clone's lair in the lab, causing a massive explosion. Then something interesting happens. Professor Warren then screams in anguish for the, fear of losing what he created. Gwen convinces Peter to save the clones. However, Spidey was only able to save the clone of himself, as the other two were damaged beyond repair. Professor Warren then explains Peter never would have known his wife was actually a clone, and the real Gwen was in the containment, now dead from the explosion. Spidey then rushes over in panic to try and save Gwen, but as we've learned from similar history, it's too late. Going forward, we are now in the year of 1978. The clone Peter and the clone Gwen are together now, and, aka Ben and Helen Parker, and are leaving town to start over and try to make something of their life outside of the clone identity. MJ is seeing them off, but Peter refuses to come down and say goodbye, seeing that, they get a second chance. But his life, once again, has been flipped upside down. MJ walks back inside the apartment and talks to Peter, trying to comfort him, as his now ex-wife Gwen is leaving the country with his clone Ben Parker. Talk about a real hit to one's manhood. Finding out your wife was actually a clone, then losing your clone wife to your clone self? It's sad and it's kind of confusing. Anyway, Peter is obviously dealing with the weight of the situation, and he desperately wants a second chance at life, seeing how he's lost everything, but maybe not everything. The moment we suspect it most, it seems MJ and Peter will become romantically involved going forward. So a second chance and a bright horizon may be on the way in the next chapter of life for Peter Parker. The next issue is titled Our Secret Wars, taking place in the 1980s. And I am very excited for this and curious how the symbiote and Venom will be implemented in this particular story. Guys, I absolutely love, this life story, Spider-Man, story arc. It's refreshing, it's exciting, and having a, so to speak, more realistic timeline in this universe is so unique to me. I just absolutely love it. Can't wait for the next issue. Let me know what you all thought about this comic. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you like what you've seen and you want to see more, subscribe now for, more videos on my YouTube channel. Until next time, squad, wham, bam, boom.